All right, we're live. Let's wait for some people to file in. What kind of pre-show banter is on your mind right now, Tyler?
Well, I wish that I was watching Succession because it seems like that's everybody's favorite Monday fodder right now, but I'm not, which I'm ashamed to say. Are you
I
watching?
Yeah, I was watching Love is Blind last night. Did you hear about the
Mhm.
fiasco with the delayed live stream?
I did not.
Well, Netflix is trying to break into the whole like live streaming space. So, most reality TV shows they do a reunion, right? But it's like recorded. I mean, like you think about like Housewives and like they'll be in the studio for 5, 6 hours, right? Just like
Right.
riffing, and then they take the best content. But Netflix was like, we're going to do a live
Huh.
reunion. And then the live stream didn't go live for, I think it was like 45 minutes after it was supposed to start.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was like, and a lot of people never even saw it. It was like, I was like, uh-oh,
Huh.
somebody's in big trouble this morning. Somebody at Netflix is in trouble.
Yikes.
But Twitter was like alive with really, really funny takes. I
I
wonder if anybody.
imagine that's a pretty big blunder. But hey, any
Yeah.
press is good press, right? I'm sure it made some waves.
And then it wasn't even like as dramatic as I'd hoped it would be. I was like,
Yeah.
but maybe I'm spoiled by like the Real Housewives of New York or New Jersey where they're like screaming and throwing things at each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't I've watched maybe like 2 episodes of Love is Blind, so I can but my understanding is that it's a very different energy.
It is.
Much
It's a
more.
character study.
Yeah.
It's a study. It's a character study. It's a study of, yeah, content. I don't know. It's such an insane premise, and people base their whole lives off it. But Netflix gets a lot of traffic on these like wedding and relationship shows. There's so many. There's so
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
We could donate a whole podcast to that, but I think
I know.
let's go ahead and get into this. We got some people coming in here now, so I'm going to full screen this. So, oops. All right. Welcome everybody to the Media Buyer Newsletter webinar. As always, this is where we deep dive into our latest ecom data powered by Northbeam. We're going to find some trends, anomalies, interesting insights for you, our readers and viewers. I'm going to keep it simple this week. We're going to rip through the data and we're going to get straight to discussion. A lot of you are saying that's what you want to hear, so we're going to get to it. This week, we're complaining about performance drops across Meta and Google that a lot of you are seeing, making some strong recommendations about ChatGPT, and taking a look at media mix modeling. So let's go ahead and dig in. So you'll notice this week that, first of all, we do not have industry data. So we are actually changing and working on the way that we're reporting on our industries on our back end. This means classifying people in a little better way of who do they fall into, what vertical are they. So we don't actually have that data for you this week. But what we do have are some new visuals and some new metrics. So immediately what you could see across this summary-wise is the results are pretty volatile. This is week over week, by the way, as always. Meta performance continues to slide. We've been seeing this now for multiple weeks. I mean, all across the board, it's red arrows. This is not great, right? Anytime you're seeing 4 or 5% changes on a site as large as Meta that has as much of your ad spend as Meta, that's something worth considering, right? We've done a lot of digging into where this is coming from, and Tyler, you might have some additional points on this, but we've done some digging into where this is coming from. I've heard things that it was related to underperforming ASC campaigns, which were like having problems, but are now working again. So maybe these numbers will look different next week. We've heard all sorts of different things. What we understand is that ASCs were not performing as well last week, but now they're back. So if you have those campaigns on or had them on and shut them off because maybe they're underperforming week over week, you could turn them back on now. But make them new, right? You can duplicate it or you can completely do it from scratch. But I feel like that's kind of the standing recommendation anytime you're feeling like turning something back on is to make it anew. But I leave that up to a case by case basis, right, on what you're facing. Things are not necessarily great on TikTok either. 10% week over week drops, in performance of CTR, 10% increase in cost per clicks. Customer acquisition costs are through the roof there, right? I feel a lot of, as they say in the crypto world, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. about what's going to happen to TikTok, right? We are already seeing the ban in Montana. I don't know if anybody saw that, but Montana is pushing through a statewide TikTok ban now with like $10,000 fines if you get caught using it, like within state lines, like really crazy stuff, right? And just this morning, you know, House Republicans are pushing for, oh, we need to ban the use of TikTok among users, among people within Congress, right? It feels like it's starting to pick up. It feels like it's starting to speed up. I don't suspect that given that we're kind of at that 18 months out now from election cycle conversations, give or take, honestly, just 6 months or so before that really starts. I think people are going to start grabbing onto TikTok bans and start pushing them, if not by an inspiration of, oh, we need to actually push through strong changes, but as like a political move, right? So that's what I'm seeing. And I think people are reacting to that. Advertisers are reacting to that, and TikTok's reacting to that. Even though our refrain remains the same, if you're seeing performance there, keep running. They ain't turned it off yet, you know? So saw that going on this week. YouTube performance, up and down across the board, but generally seeing customer acquisition costs come down 50% week over week. I'm hearing that YouTube is still one of the strongest performers for as far as efficiency goes, if not volume, efficiency in the month of March and April so far. So that's pretty impressive. Our bottom two performers here, as far as budget split goes, our Microsoft people and our Pinterest people. Still major changes week over week there, but you probably don't have as much volume in those platforms. So week over week, we're going to be sending you all of these metrics now. So instead of just 3 or a handful or pasting them all into a big kind of hard to read document, we're going to be giving you these visuals so you can actually see, okay, this is auction and this is conversion. And though a lot of you are looking at this and comparing it against your week over week reporting metrics and on your own side, this should make that easier for you, right? Feel free to copy and paste these into your deck. I'll be flattered. Budgets by platform, haven't seen too many moves here. We kind of maintain this like 65 to 67% share on Meta, which is like kind of what we're expecting. Really, unless there's some major legal legislation that happens that's maybe banning TikTok or whatever it may be, I don't expect major flips in this budget week over week. I think it's probably better for us to look at, if you're thinking about comparing your own performance to these benchmarks, what you saw on the previous slide. On Google, over here, of course, PMax maintains a large share of the budget. That should be higher than that. And then shopping is budget shares a little bit down. And people report that shopping campaigns weren't working as well as PMax last week. So before we get into discussion on our two major points this week, which is going to be ChatGPT and media mix modeling, Tyler, is there anything you saw across these decks that I can dive into that's relevant and interesting that you want to comment on?
No, I think everybody's looking for an answer as to why we're seeing on some of these key platforms conversion rate down so dramatically. There isn't a single smoking gun, though. I've talked to a lot of people that are much deeper in the weeds than I am, and there isn't a single smoking gun right now. I think it's something that we're going to continue to keep an eye on. Like you mentioned, Brian, I'm hearing the same thing, that ASC campaigns were specifically struggling with conversion. Auction metrics looked fine on a lot of those. And as we can see here, CPCs are up a bit, but it's really conversion rates that have tanked that are driving up those CPAs and driving down ROAS. So it's interesting, but even that doesn't tell us why, for example, we're seeing mirrored conversion rate issues on TikTok. So this isn't looking at our past data, this isn't really there's not really a precedent for this in terms of seasonality. So barring some shock to the market, to demand that we're all unaware of for some reason, there's probably this is probably something that's going to take a little bit longer to actually uncover like what's really happening here. And so yeah, I don't have deeper commentary on it, but I think it's something, this is a pretty significant shift, right? We're seeing 2 straight weeks where April has just been very, very soft across, primarily across Meta and TikTok, but we see things aren't great elsewhere either. So there's probably some underlying macro impacts.
That's what I always take a step back and look at when I see these changes happening is I'm like, okay, what sort of macro thing is going on, right? And sometimes I'm wondering, like, did everybody's Google searches change overnight, right? And like our budgets kind of haven't caught up with it. It's like, it could be anything like that, right? And that's the hardest thing to identify and also the least satisfying to report on when it's like, well, I think there's something that happened that we all missed, right? I remember back in the day when you could see performance drops based on some specific cultural event that was on television at the time, because you know that everybody's watching one thing or at some other thing, right? And when it's outside of your normal things like holidays or purchasing is going to be up and down on a specific day that never changes, it's really, to your point, it's really tough to measure it. All right, let's spend the last couple of minutes here talking about some things that have been hot on everybody's mind. ChatGPT. This is a brave new world for marketing, right? I think unless you live under a rock, you've been hearing people talk about how marketers can use ChatGPT to speed up their work, to generate creative ideas, to even create media buying plans, right? Like really crazy things like that. My question is, in your opinion, Tyler, because I've got one. In your opinion, Tyler, is ChatGPT good for marketers, and is it that simple?
I think it, in the right hands, it's good for marketers, right? And I think that there are certainly good use cases and there are bad use cases, but there, no matter what, there are use cases, right? And if you're not using it, it's a missed opportunity to learn on a technology that is going to develop a lot, right? This is still very early days. But I think the most important thing to remind ourselves is this is it's a language prediction model, right? And so it is incredibly helpful for doing basic tasks, anything that just requires just publicly available information. It's able to spit things out and it's able to provide ideas, right? And I think the real advantage of that is we spend so much time. I remember when I first got involved in marketing, one of the first things that you're doing is things like writing copy, right? Like we see a bunch of headlines here. And that seems to be one of the areas that people are first diving in. And I think that's a great use case, is writing copy, building landing pages, getting feedback on whether what you wrote down initially is readable, and then maybe asking for a version that is slightly different, maybe tailored to a different audience, right? And I think that those are all tasks that require a lot of brain power and prevent us from spending our time focusing on strategic priorities for the business. So I think if you're not leveraging the technology or testing it out, it's just a missed opportunity for you to try to unload some of that brain power, right? And save you some, not just save you some time back, but literally save you mental energy back, so you can focus on the things that really require your brain power.
I remember, that's a really great point, because I remember studying data science and having conversations of like, what does automation look like, right? And automation doesn't look like a robot fully has taken your job. That's it's not some cyborg sits down at your desk and does your work. What automation looks like is a fewer number of people achieving more productivity with the help of automated things, whether it's things like Zapier, right? Or what I would say in this extreme case is basically you're someone who has read the entire internet and can process it into something useful for you, right? Which is like, in a sense, what ChatGPT could do. My hesitation with this is I'm coming from a creative perspective, because I'm like, yes, you can do a lot of that grunt work for you, but like, if literally every marketer out there is using ChatGPT, which only pulls off of existing data on the internet, are you not going to make a ton of really generic stuff? Like, is everything not going to be like really, right, common denominator, right down on the line, like the most bland, basic, boring things in the world? And like, I'm looking at this example here, and it's like, give me 10 ad headlines that persuade dog-fed customers that they'll feel more accepted with dog X product. And I'm reading these and I'm like, dude, these suck, man. This is like spam, right, on the internet. And it was our own David Herman who was like, you need to stand out. You need to make something that's new, that's shocking, that's different. And I wondered in this episode of the newsletter, I was like, could ChatGPT have gotten you to something like the iconic the first ad of its kind to achieve this. The unicorn squatty potty ad from like, what was that, like 2008 or something, right? Like literally one of the first big Harmon Brother ads to like crack that code. And so for me, I'm like, yeah, it's useful, but it cannot be the last word in your business, right?
Totally. No, I 100% agree. It's like you said, it's going to pick very much a middle ground. It's not going to do anything edgy, right? So it's very much, in my opinion, a tool for helping you refine content and refine ideas that you have. And once you've given it some background, turn out more informational pieces, right? And so I think that's its role on landing pages. In copy, maybe it helps you tweak headlines. But yeah, if you're relying on this to come up with your next big ad concept, yeah, I don't know if it's going to give you anything groundbreaking there.
DDB tried that with their little like uncreative agency tool, which was live for a second, and it would literally make creative pitches for you based on anything. And to their own admission, they were so bad that they were almost good. Which like then you've come full circle, right? I think it'd be really funny to be like, Chat GPT made this ad, and then you just let it go haywire and make whatever it wants. Like that's pretty funny, right? Cool. All right, let's wrap this up with one more thing. Everybody is talking about MMM, not just us. Marketing mix modeling, media mix modeling, majorly confusing mix modeling, whatever you want to call it, right? Everybody is talking about this, from marketers to data scientists to big agencies to tiny marketers. In your opinion, Tyler, why is everybody talking about MMM right now? And if people don't know what this is, just go open another tab and Google it really quick. But Tyler, why is everybody talking about this right now?
Yeah, well, I think everybody is afraid of this direction we're going, where cookies are becoming less reliable, right? And so this really started all the way back with CCPA, and then more recently with iOS 14. And things are only going to get harder on cookies and any sort of third-party tracking next year when Google rolls out more strict tolerances on what you're able to collect. So it's and again, Chrome is majority of the browsers, at least in the American market, are on Chrome. So those impacts are going to be huge. So I think that there's a lot to pull out of what's going on. And I think if you don't have a really deep technical understanding, it might seem like, okay, the MMM is the only option. I think that our take, and in my personal opinion, is that we're migrating towards a world where MMM isn't the only option, but it's a great complement to first-party tracking. And so first-party tracking will be slightly impacted next year. You're going to have less time that you're able to store first-party cookies, but you're still going to be able to store those, and those still will be highly reliable. So that's not really changing. First-party tracking, the kind that you're getting through Northbeam, isn't really going to be heavily impacted. And we have a lot of infrastructure already set up so that we can leverage other signals to continue to match individuals. And so we feel really good about our position. And we think that multi-touch attribution is still necessary if you want to optimize anything below the channel level budget, right? But I think that for brands that are looking for cookie-free options, MMM is a great option for that. For brands that are looking to understand offline channels, MMM is a great option for that, right? And so I think the simplicity of it and the fact that it doesn't require any sort of granular data set, all you need is your spend by day, your revenue by day. I think that's what's really attractive to the market right now.
I also wonder if so many smaller brands who are trying to break that, 7-figure, 8-figure kind of conversation in their revenue, you're sitting around and you're going, all right, I have 1 million channels I can advertise on, right? I can be on my Facebook, my Pinterest. Do I need to be on YouTube, right? And you really only have so much effort you can distribute. And so understanding, using MMM to understand, okay, what channel should I put my budget behind? And not just your budget, but like the effort of the people in your business, right? Like if you have a video creator, right? It's the difference between, do they spend all their time making YouTube or TikTok videos, right? Knowing that we live in this world where you can't just be on one channel anymore, where you need to be on a dozen different channels, where you need to advertise in so many different places, having an understanding of that split is like a golden ticket, or at least it feels like it, right? It's like, now I understand what blend of omni-channels is actually supporting my business. But, we found a lot of these models that we've seen, they don't really measure your interchannel interactions, right? It's all like one channel in a vacuum against the revenue whole. So, I think this is really useful. I'm curious if brands will be able to actually achieve this on their own, or if they should work with somebody like Northbeam, who's demoing an MMM product. Happy to say that on this call. I don't know if they can figure it out on their own, right?
Yeah, I think it's an industry that's been around for about 50 years, and there hasn't really been big leaps in the methodology. And most of those efforts have been directed towards linear regression, right? Econometric modeling. And so I think I'm really excited about, we're still early days, right? But I think I'm really excited by some of the output I'm seeing, some of the early work that we've had in alpha with customers that shows that there is potential in this method that is more based on machine learning, more based on what you mentioned, Brian, where we're looking at channel interactions. How, as you say, scale up your TV spend, how do you need to complement that with spend on other channels, supportive channels, to make sure that that TV can perform for you? And so I think those are some of the exciting things that these are these challenges that in the industry, MMM hasn't really been able to answer the call on, is understanding channel interactions, understanding the fact that as you scale a channel, it's not going to be linear increase in how much it impacts your business. So I'm really excited about it. I think that it's the first real big different approach that I've seen in the industry in a while. So yeah, I'm very, very excited about it.
For those of you who are interested in learning more about Northbeam's MMM Plus, there's a link at the end of the Media Buyer newsletter that was sent on Sunday. So go check that out. We're obviously going to be talking a lot more about this as well. It's kind of like a quiet, soft launch for the people on this call and the people on our list. So stay tuned. We'll be talking a lot more about it. I feel like we could dedicate hours and hours and hours to this conversation, and we probably will. So that's it for this week's Media Buyer. We're going to wrap it up here. Tyler, any final notes for the people this week? I know I'm definitely want to say, keep an eye on what's happening on TikTok. Keep an eye on that ban. And if you haven't already, go out there, get a ChatGPT account, and just try and work it into your workflow. It's something weird. It's like having a pair programming person with you, or like a creative partner that requires like very specific outputs. So if I could recommend anything, it would be keep an eye on the TikTok stuff this week and test out ChatGPT. Is there anything you want to tell our listeners, viewers, readers?
Yeah, the one thing that I always like to remind myself of every so often is that there's always going to be different ways to model your data, right? Different, you can always try out different attribution models, right? And so we're always looking for this answer of kind of what's going to be the next unlock for our business. But the one thing that I like to remind myself of is, in order to learn something, you usually need to change something. And so my encouragement is don't be afraid to try something new this week. Try pushing something in a different direction. You always learn that way. It's the best way to learn. And so don't be afraid to do that.
Words of wisdom from the best in it. Thank you, Tyler. Everybody, see us here same time next week. And keep an eye for the next issue of the newsletter. If you have any questions, tweet at us at Northbeam, DM us, send us what you want to see, send us notes about the data that we can pull for you, send us points that we can chat about in next week's newsletter. This is for you, the readers. So yeah, we look forward to hearing from you. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. And thank you again, Tyler.
Thanks, Brian.